All right, let me get you up to speed on where we are with this shot. We've moved on to shot number 2, which is an overhead. And if you remember earlier in this tutorial, I was talking about how I hate doing overhead shots. If you look at my portfolio, almost everything is coming on from a nice low angle. The food's really graphic, really heroic. The one exception I did say to that is when you are doing groupings. Some people do photograph food from overhead, and it kind of works for them. I don't prefer it unless it's a grouping of different plates. And that's what we have here. A couple of weeks ago we were in this restaurant having lunch, and I thought, that cart is awesome, I want to shoot on that. So what we've done is we've pulled out this cart. We're going to do an overhead shot where we've got the couch and we're creating a little bit more of an intimate setting. So it's kind of removing it from the dining table, and we're going to a little bit more kind of casual, relaxed, intimate setting. We've got the chef working on 3 different dishes, and one of the things that I wanted to do in order to save time going through this shoot is I grabbed one of the dishes that we shot on before in shot number 1. I put it out here and I'm just using it as a stand-in. So that way I get an idea of color, I get an idea of shape. I do have the 3 plates that are going to be out here in terms of their shape, and it happened to be that the niçoise from the previous shot is in the same type of bowl. So that gave me a head start, kind of going ahead and formulating this. Let's look at the images really quickly here that I popped up on screen. So the very first one I shot was hot, didn't have anything balanced, really didn't have much stuff out there. I've just gone through a couple of different images, incarnations, and gotten myself out of the way because my camera is up above me. This is kind of an unusual place where we've got this nice mezzanine, and I'm able to mount my camera directly above me. I've got it locked down on a railing up there so it can't fall. I've got the camera so it's positioned the way I want, but it's pointing almost directly straight down, which means the lens elements actually get heavy and they start to pull down, which pulls it out of focus. So one of the things I did is I focused it, and then I took gaff tape and I taped up the lens barrel so it can't pull itself down and can't knock out of focus. Because if you look at these shots, that's exactly what happened. The first one, it was a little bit sharper, and then it gets progressively softer as I go through. Now I'm starting to get a little bit of light coming in here and crafting it, kind of moving my crop around just a bit and starting to get some plates in there. So that's kind of where I am right now. Again, this is all stand-in. I love the intimate setting that I'm starting to get. It's a cool vibe, and I need to fine-tune it, get some food out here, and we're going to make this one happen. All right, so a couple other things I want to talk to you about. One, as I said, I had lunch in this restaurant a couple of weeks ago, and I saw this cart. It was off to the side, and it's what they use as a busing station, and I just thought it was really interesting. I like it combined with this old tile floor. This building was originally built for a Ford dealership in 1912, and this is the original floor. This old tile, it's over 100 years old, which is pretty cool. And they have this antique couch, which is in their entryway. So we just kind of pulled on everything that's already in here. We had the bartender make us a couple of cocktails. We picked up the couch from the other side of the room. We pulled the cart from the other side of the room and kind of brought it all together to make this environment. So we're using the resources that we have here in the restaurant, so it's authentic to what the restaurant is. We're not making something up completely. We're just kind of taking a little liberty and rearranging it. Now I've got 2 modifiers that I'm using, and this is just 2 lights. I wanted to have that open feel the way I tend to do with food. I've got my 5-foot Octabox. This is a nice light. It's up on the Hensel Porty. I've got it fairly high, and it's just kind of pointed down. It's coming from the upper left center right here. And one of the things it's really doing nicely is giving some nice highlight on this velvet couch. It's also bringing a lot of good light onto the food where it's even, but it's kind of raking. You see that the source is definitely coming from the left side and it's moving across. My second light is just my fill light, and it's a Hensel Porty again. This time it's going through a small 24-inch Octabox, no baffle, no front diffusion. It's pointed up towards the ceiling in order to push even light back down. I don't want something directional at all. The ceiling is not a pure white, it's kind of a beige tint, so it's actually going to warm up my scene overall just slightly. That's okay, it doesn't bother me in the least, but that's my fill light. It's just a simple Octabox, nothing inside of it, pointed at the ceiling and allowing that light to kind of bounce back down. The only thing I see here is that the front of this cart is going a little dark. I do like that because it's a series of shelves, but I'm probably going to bring a white cart in here just to kick a little bit of light into the front so we just get a hair of detail in there. I don't want it to go quite that dark in my final image. So I'm very careful as I move through a restaurant. I want to look down. I want to make sure that I'm not tripping as I'm carrying the food, which they've laboriously worked on. Okay, so you see that I'm being gingerly with this as I bring it in. And one of the things I want to do is I want to suggest that this is a gathering spot, not just by the couch, but by the other things that are on the table as well. So I've got a stack of plates, I've got a whole bunch of forks, and I'm going to kind of give that suggestion that people are going to come gather here and have a meal. To that end, I'm going to leave that original dish down there. I may even add another dish or two just to give it some height. Again, suggesting that more people are going to come and gather. We're going to bring out the final dish and we're going to start to really fine-tune the details of it. So one of the nice things about being this low with my camera up above, remember I always like to put my head between the lens and my subject and get right from my camera's perspective to take a look. So I can kind of easily do that here by looking up and looking back down. The reason I'm doing that is I just want to break the edge here a little bit. I'm trying to create a little bit of tension in some things that are going to, again, lead the eye through the composition. Remember, I'm hammering that home, saying it time and time again, because I cannot tell you how critical it is to think about your composition and think about leading the viewer's eye through it and back around to your main focal point. Now, I've shot a lot of interiors as well. That's always been something that I've done for interior home magazines. And for some reason, the way all decorators fluff a pillow is to kind of get it fluffy, and then it's like they karate chop it right in the middle to create kind of a V. If you look at magazine covers or magazines anywhere, you'll see that all the time. I'm going to do that here just to create a little bit more interest in the pillow because it's kind of don't love it. Let's see what we got. A little too much from this perspective, but I'm going to play with those a little bit. I want the suggesting of environment. Those are too hot now and they're kind of, my eyes going to them. But I like what else is going on. The food looks awesome. All right, let's take a quick look at this close up. And look how beautiful the food is. So this is a great example where the chef and I talked about color. We sat down and we said, okay, we want to do 3 dishes. We know we're not going to see the detail super close because we're going to pull back. So we need color. We need something that's going to pull the eye in and is going to contrast off of this nice neutral palette that we have with the cart. So again, we've got color that's coming off of the couch. That's kind of pushing us down, leading us back into the food. The food looks fantastic. I mean, that's right on the money. There's just a little bit I'm going to do with it, but not much at all. All right, so we're going to fine-tune the food. Now, let me remind you the conversation that I always have with chefs. Whenever we go into a restaurant and we're about to shoot, I talk to them about building the plate for the camera's perspective. I ask them to take a stock pot, flip it over in order to bring the plate up so that they're not working at counter height, because I want to shoot in and get that better camera perspective, and I need them to think about building the food that way. So when I talked with the chefs, we picked out the 5 different locations that we were going to shoot in this restaurant, and I knew that I wanted to do 1 overhead shot. So we very specifically called out the food for this. We were very specific in knowing what 3 dishes we wanted to shoot overhead, and I had them build it as they normally would, where they would stand over the counter, in fact lean in a little bit in order to get even more overhead. So just asking the chef to kind of think about your camera perspective is a great way to ensure that the food is going to be styled properly and look good for the camera perspective. So one of the things that I'm seeing here as I come in tighter, when I'm zooming in on this, it's starting to break apart a little bit. I'm actually kind of coming in a little bit tight. You know, I'm up quite a bit. I've got my 50mm on here and I'm cropping in slightly, and I've got the 1.3 crop factor because I'm using the Mark IV. I'm just too far away from it and I want to get a little bit more detail. So I'm going to go up there, I'm going to switch the lens to the 85 because I don't need this extraneous stuff on the outside. Rather than crop in with my program, I'm going to crop in with the camera so I can get in tighter, get better detail. I may lose a little bit, but I don't think I'm going to lose much at all. So let's go make that switch. So I just double check it. I make sure that lens is clicked on nicely before I let it go. Don't want it to fall because if it hits that ground, It's toast. It's definitely different. That's full crop. I'm not putting anything on it in terms of crop, and I'm definitely losing some stuff. So I think I need to go back up there and make some adjustments because I like seeing that floor. I don't want to lose that stuff without question. You can see the difference in it. It really loses some of the drama when we come in tight like that. Okay, so we've run into a bit of a problem where my 50 is a little too wide. I'm not getting enough detail in there, so I want to make an adjustment. Going to my 85 1.2 is too tight. Now I'm not getting some of the environment around. So I'm going to go to the 24 to 105. This is a pretty consumer-based L-series lens. It's pretty attainable by anybody because it's, I think, price point under $1,000. But we're going to go ahead and we're going to use this. We're going to zoom in kind of right exactly where we want. That way I can capitalize on the sensor and get in and give the proper amount of attention to the details of the food. So remember before I was talking about the weight of the lens? When I had a fixed focal lens up here, the 85 or the 50, the sheer weight of it was pulling the elements down and was knocking it out of focus just by gravity. Well, now I got the double whammy on this because I've got a zoom and the focal ring that I've got to worry about. So I'm going to have to tape the zoom lens, or the zoom ring first, because it will drag down and completely change the focal length that I'm using. And then I'll find my focus and I'll tape that. Okay, so one last thing that I'm doing, I'm going to check my cameras from all angles because I want to make sure that it's not pitched. I don't want this thing to be looking off in a weird way because it's going to change the perspective of the food. So I'm making sure it's flat this way. It's just got to be slightly tipped up in order to look down in the scene, but I want to make sure I'm not pitched. So I'll look at my camera from multiple angles to make sure I'm in the right track. And so the last thing I'm going to do is get in here and make sure I'm focused. And I'm going to tape that as well. So I've taped the zoom ring, which ensures that I'm going to stay at the same focal length. And now I've taped my focus ring, so it's not going to drag down and knock out of focus. Good exercise with the stairs, I tell you that much. So let's take a look at it now and see if we're on track. Pretty nice. Okay, I think what I'm going to do is increase my depth of field a little by increasing my ISO. I'm going to go from 100 to 200. And I think I'm going to zoom back in because I feel like I still have too much stuff going on around it. Oops. Yeah, I don't think I need all that room. So let's add my crop again because I want to make sure that I'm on 14 by 22. I'm going to use as much of the sensor as I possibly can. I don't want to waste anything on this shot since I'm so high. So you can see I'm just cutting off a little bit of it, a little sliver at the bottom, a little sliver at the top. That's all I'm losing on this. But I definitely want to go up there. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit more. That is much better. That is right where I want it to be. Make a quick little crop adjustment. Take it in a hair. I like it. Food looks beautiful. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add a little bit of water. I'm just going to freshen it up. A couple things in here need a little bit of life to it. Other than that, we're ready to roll. And last thing I want to do, I want to bring this card in just a little bit more. I'm going to hold this in here so you can see the difference. I'm going to need when I shoot, just to get a little bit of light in the front of this cart. You can see it helped out just a little bit. I'm probably going to bring it in even more when I'm ready for the hero. All right, so let me take a quick analysis of this thing. Now remember, I'm allowing my eyes to defocus, right? So I'm looking at it and I just let my eyes kind of blur. I literally let them kind of cross a little bit and blur. The reason I'm doing that, I want to see shape, right? I want to see shape that starts to bother me, and you'll notice it more when you defocus. So what I just noticed is these guys down here, they're just kind of bugging me a little bit because of the way they're intersecting with the fork. So I'm going to make a little change with the napkin. I'm going to add a little bit of moisture to the food, and we're going to shoot it. I'm also going to fix that tangent right there. All right, so let's see what we think of this. I just wanted to change the shape of this. I like the way these guys are coming off camera, but I'm just not quite happy with them. So I'm going to try to rearrange them slightly. Let's see what we got. Yeah, that's better. Now if I pull them out a little bit so they're not quite on the forks, you can see how there's a tangent where the base of the fork is just intersecting with the napkin. I hate tangents like that. You got to get rid of those. They look terrible. So let's go like this. One more capture. We'll finalize the food and then this shot is done. Yeah, better. You see how we've given that a little bit of breathing room? I like it. I think everything looks awesome. I'm really happy with this shot. For somebody who's not a big fan of overhead shots, I'm in love with this overhead shot. It's beautiful. So with these last few shots, I just did some fine tuning. I wanted to bring a little bit more light down on these shelves. You can see it was a little bit dark. I also moved this one plate out just a little bit. I wanted that tangent to actually break through here. It wasn't quite breaking as much as I wanted, so I just moved it a little bit more. I like it. So that's it. I'm going to wrap up this shot. I'm really happy with it. I think the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my camera, I'm going to come in tight and handheld. I'm just going to get a couple of quick shots of each one of these plates just to see what I get while it's in this environment. So the last thing I'm doing here is I'm just very loose, very freely going through and taking some shots handheld. Just something simple, something kind of fun. I got a couple minutes, so I thought I'd try it. Holy cow, it's kind of nice.
Do they know that we're making the other dishes?
Yeah. In fact, if somebody wants to check with them, let them know I'm ready. All right, I'm very pleased with this. I think we're at a place where I could actually wrap this particular dish up and move on to the next two that we're going to shoot in this location.